According to Tech Radar, 52% of executives struggle with fragmented cybersecurity, making it tough to innovate and manage risks. SEI Sphere's platformization approach helps the C-suite enhance protection, reduce costs, and simplify operations with a unified security strategy. To learn more about this, I'm joined by Dave Detweiler and Mike Lefebvre from SEI Sphere. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for having us.
Dave, let's start with you. Why is cybersecurity fragmentation a growing challenge for IT leaders?
It's a great question, and actually probably the best answer here is it's not just a recent challenge. This challenge has been going on for decades. It's just becoming worse. I think that, for some of the folks listening in today, they maybe have inherited tools over years, or the growing fragmentation that we've seen is how really organizations have been taught to buy these tools kind of over the years, right? The idea is you see a problem, go buy a tool and fix it. You see another problem, go buy a tool and fix it. We could name all kinds of tools like this. Think of antivirus, think of firewalls, think of endpoint detection, right? That's the fragmentation that we've all been in. And really it's kind of the hammer and nail, right? We're used to seeing a nail, we become a hammer, we hammer that nail down. And the idea is if we have a problem, we bought a tool, we solve the individual problem. And now we've really grown into this bunch of stuff, almost like a Frankenstein type environment that we're seeing.
What risks does a fragmented security landscape pose to organizations?
That's a big question, right? But I think there's kind of two ways to look at it specifically. One is kind of the company level, right? There's a risk that's added just simply by having additional vendors. I think we're all aware of that, right? Vendor due diligence and the things that go into that. It adds time, it adds complexity, and honestly, it adds corporate risk, right? And at the highest level, that's what you have to start thinking of, right? Because each organization is really responsible for our relationships in that way. Operationally, having multiple tools, it creates all kinds of difficulty. Most of these tools weren't built to work together, right? Never mind integrated together. And then, what we were all told over years was to buy a SIM, right, Mike? Mike's going to talk about this a little bit as well. But operationally, what it's creating is an idea. There's these gaps, right? It's actually created in a way, when you talk about point solutions operating independently across these organizations, it's an opportunity for failure, right? There's a single point of risk. If one of those tools fails, it creates a big area of risk for organizations, and that's something we have to pay attention to.
Now, Dave, cost is a big issue. What are the hidden costs of security complexity, and how can platformization help IT leaders reduce spending while improving protection?
Probably the best question, right? If you're a cybersecurity craftsman on this call, you're saying, I'm always asking for budget and I'm trying to figure out how to create that budget. And if you're an executive on this call or a leader of organizations, you're saying, hey, where can I spend my best dollar on cybersecurity, right? But really what is the complexity is creating, to your specific question, is there's duplication of spend. As these tools have grown over years, when you first bought your endpoint tool or whatever tool you bought, your email tool, it was only doing a certain set of things. Do you know what I mean? And now that has grown. So now you have a duplicate spend and even a possibility of lesser tool effectiveness. Never mind the idea that when you have multiple tools, a lot of times you're duplicating manpower as well, right? And personnel. The last piece of this, which I think in the cyber world is probably the most important piece, is time. So when you have a complex operation or independent tools that are trying to work together, it doesn't make it efficient and quick. And we all know in the cyber world, if something happens, speed is the answer, right? So the quicker you can get there, the quicker time. We all talk in those terms, right? Time to remediate, better time to detect, all those kind of things. Those things can only happen when you eliminate that complexity, when you can bring that into a platform so you can see all of it, right? And that's where we're seeing the benefit of this. And definitely the idea of eliminating some of those hidden costs. They're really, over the years, because of that fragmentation you mentioned earlier in the question we talked about, has really become duplication and overlap from some of these tools and the manpower, which makes it difficult.
Mike, let's bring you into the conversation and sticking with costs. With many executives aiming to cut security costs, how can IT leaders make smarter investments without compromising security?
It's a great question. With the never-ending, cycles of budget and trying to right-size spend with regard to cybersecurity and the risks presented to a business, it's important to realize that every business has innate cyber risk just by nature of being a business that has a digital footprint. And a lot of what we do in risk management comes down to one of four things, and that's either accept, avoid, transfer, or mitigate. A lot of what we do here in this space here is, trying to mitigate ourselves by deploying tools, managing those tools, operating those tools. A lot of times, though, we can find that budget can actually go a little bit further in extracting value by transferring some of that risk into other operators that can actually help us as well. So a lot of times, we think we need to go at it alone in terms of mitigating it ourselves, but transferring to a partner can actually really help produce some ROI when it comes to spend of cyber.
Mike, how does SEI Sphere help businesses achieve a more streamlined, effective, and future-ready cybersecurity framework?
First and foremost, we are operators ourselves. As a global fintech, we built a platform, a prescriptive platform with the tools that we believe in because we are operating them and experts in these particular tools ourselves. So when we deploy our platform to environments of customers, they are getting the expertise and the heritage of an organization that has been running this for itself for nearly 2 decades. And when we talk about the power of a platform and how it really can set up a foundation for future proofing, I'd like to bring in an example of the smartphone, the modern smartphone as we know it today. First launched in about 2007 by Steve Jobs, it was presented as the convergence of three devices into one. It was positioned as a camera, a phone, and an internet communication device in one. And while at the time it was really convenient was sort of one of the main selling points. What it actually established in conjunction with the operating system and then eventually the App Store is that platform became the foundation for innovation for thousands and countless apps and developers and functionality that we've since come to be reliant on. And so as we move from sort of the Frankenstein that Dave talked about earlier today, the industry is moving towards platformization. The realization is that we can actually enable organizations to accelerate and mature their cyber programs in a way that's actually more right-sized for organizations and commensurate with the threat.
How does a unified cybersecurity approach improve visibility, response time, and overall security posture for IT leaders?
Let's think about it on the flip side for a second. And if you think about disjointed, fragmented tools that were not meant to work together, from an operations standpoint, you have to log into different systems individually, or you have to manage and search through logs on their own. It's almost like a chess game where the pieces don't know what the other pieces are doing or where they are. So my background's in incident response, and as a former incident responder, a lot of what we did to help uncover an incident was just timelining, grabbing logs from various sources, aligning the times to then actually re-piece together what an attacker did in a particular environment. So instead of doing timelining after the fact, if we work more upstream of having our tools work together to paint a better picture of the digital landscape, we can then actually work better as defenders against the attacker, who is an adversary, a human on the other side of the keyboard.
How does SEI Sphere integrate zero trust and network security into a cohesive defense in-depth model?
Zero trust as a cybersecurity strategy and an approach as an evolution or revolution from the traditional castle and moat model, has really taken hold as, COVID has accelerated the distributed workforce and working from home. Our managed platform provides that foundation for our clients to accelerate their zero trust model overnight because we provide the platform and the expertise of a managed platform that enables our customers then to build on, just like the apps in the App Store.
And really kind of, I think that it's important to say we spend a lot of times professionally in this world. We've met the individual who coined the phrase zero trust. It's a business process, right? It's not a security tool. It's not a place. It's a process that businesses have to deploy. Think about it. It comes with policies and processes. It's not just one thing, right? But we definitely think that we can move in organizations closer to zero trust with the tools we're providing.
Now, Mike and Davey gave us some great information. What key steps should IT leaders take to consolidate security tools and build a more resilient cybersecurity strategy?
So I like to first recommend doing what I call a digital defragmentation, just like we used to do with our hard drives back then, of kind of reassessing everything you have. You can't go forward if you don't know what you currently have. So assess your current program, people, process, tools. What do you have? If you have tools laying around that you don't know about, check with accounts payable. They likely know, but assess what you have and see what's working and what's not. Once you have a baseline then of tools that you've already deployed in your environment, align those tools and their respective functionalities then to an applicable framework, whether it's NIST CSF or the Center for Internet Security, top controls, whatever framework you're working with, map those controls and functions to those frameworks. That then can at least paint a fundamental baseline of how your environment looks, potential gaps, maybe a potential duplication. And once you're armed with this knowledge, then the third step I would say is then actually to partner with an expert. It's sort of like organizations are within a jar trying to read the label. And sometimes that external perspective from a partner can actually help clarify how then to move forward. So those are the first 3 steps that I'd recommend for leadership.
Dave, I'd love to learn about some use cases. Can you share some examples of businesses that have improved security outcomes and ROI by transitioning to a platform approach?
That's why we're here, right, Kenna? A good example. Recently, Mike and I were working with an organization, probably about 700 employees, give or take, 5 locations regionally based, middle of the country here in the States. And when we met them and started working with them, they had multiple vendors, right? Similar to what we were talking about. They, including, an MSP, they had an MDR, they had some managed services wrapped around both of those relationships. And, so they had some managed services. When we started working through this with them, they had close to 8 specific vendors that they were identified as security vendors, several of those providing multiple tools or services. So when we worked with them initially, just to understand the tooling, it's part of the process, right? I think this platform concept really comes from a partnership approach. So we worked with them on what tools they had in place, where were they trying to get to from an organizational standpoint, and maybe more importantly, where did they stand with their contracting terms? Everybody here listening in on this knows it's very difficult because of the timeline and how we've bought these solutions to unwind some of these contracts. So what we did is we call it a buyout program here. And what the program enables us to do is slowly roll off some of those tools as we're bringing on the platform, allowing organizations not to duplicative spend, right? One of the things we know loud and clear is that people aren't out looking to have 2 tools, 2 spends, extra spend. None of that works. But what really people want is a better outcome, right? So we worked with that organization. So it was about like a 45 to 60 day implementation. We rolled off some of the tools. We brought them on our prescriptive platform, like Mike mentioned. So one outcome was they eliminated multiple vendors. I think they eliminated 6 out of those 8 that I had mentioned earlier. And there's another part here internally, right? Everybody calls it soft dollars, but those internal IT people were actually, they had 2 folks on their IT staff who were pretty much, I won't say 40 hours a week, but pretty much a lot of their time was spent chasing down alerts, making sure that the vendors who were monitoring today were doing their job or, not creating additional focus. Those 2 individuals now have started and moved forward in the IAM solution and program within that business. So the identity management program, and the other one's focusing on an AI initiative that the business has. So I know many of you have heard this before. We talk about it a lot. What are your folks doing right now? And are they helping push the business forward? And that's what we've allowed this organization to do. We've eliminated vendors, in turn eliminating risk. We've given their people back better time to focus on organizational developments and things that can help them move the business forward. And at the same time, we've increased their security posture. So that's a pretty cool outcome. It's a complex topic, right, Kenna? And the idea is that usually that comes around the multiple contracts and the multiple tools in place. So understanding that, working with the right partner, partnering with someone who can, have the patience to work through those contracts is important, because no business is out there with an open checkbook to go buy additional tools for fun.
Dave, you're right. That is an amazing outcome. Where can we learn more?
So we actually just produced a guidebook. The guidebook's called How Platforms Transform Security for the Modern C-Suite. And it's good for both the craftsmen, as we've addressed some things here. I like to call that term, the cyber craftsmen here that might be listening. And it's also good for the C-suite individuals. And really, it has very specific 5 key steps, 5 key takeaways that organizations can use to start going down this platformization path.
Dave and Michael, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kenna.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been great.
It has. And thank you all for tuning in. For the Channel Company, I'm Kenna Johnston.